I still remember the sting of hot coffee soaking through my white dress, Amanda's smirk etched into my memory. "You'll never fit in," she whispered as laughter echoed around the table. It was Christmas morning. The tree sparkled, but my place beneath it was empty. I smiled, not because I was weak, but because I knew something none of them did. A secret buried for decades was about to explode. They thought I was the outsider, the charity case. But the truth? I was the only one who truly belonged. And this year, I wouldn't be the one watching from the sidelines. I would burn the stage. Snow clung to the edges of the massive wrought iron gate as I stepped out of the taxi, the cold biting at my skin. Through the frost-covered window panes, I could see the dining room glowing with warmth, crystal glasses sparkling, garlands twinkling, and the fireplace crackling under a golden-framed portrait of our father. Everyone was already seated. My name hadn't made it to the group text again. An honest mistake, they'd say, just like last year. And the year before. I pressed the buzzer. A few seconds later, the door opened, not by a family member, but by the housekeeper. Her eyes lingered on me for a second too long before she stepped aside silently. I walked into the mansion where I had spent 25 years of my life. Yet, somehow, it never stopped feeling like I was trespassing. The smell of cinnamon, roasted ham, and pine needles hit me like a memory I wasn't ready for. I made my way to the dining room, heels clicking against the polished marble floor. Amanda spotted me first. Her face didn't move, but her eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "Well, look who made it," she said, raising her champagne glass. "Didn't think you'd show." "Traffic," I lied. The truth was, I had spent 30 minutes outside in my car, rehearsing my smile. The room quieted just long enough for my absence to be acknowledged. Then, as if on cue, everyone returned to their conversations. My chair had been placed slightly off-centre, away from the family portrait backdrop everyone else shared. Subtle, intentional. I sat down, pulling my coat around me. Amanda leaned in slightly, her voice honeyed with sarcasm. "White dress? Bold choice," she said, glancing at her red wine glass. "Bit optimistic, isn't it?" "I like starting the year with hope," I replied, pouring myself water. My fingers trembled, but I kept the glass steady. Presents were exchanged, one by one. Leather-bound books for Amanda, gold cufflinks for her husband, a limited edition watch for our brother. When my turn came, Mother handed me a small velvet box wrapped meticulously. I smiled politely and opened it. Inside was nothing, literally nothing. An empty box. "Oh my God," Amanda burst out laughing. "Did someone forget to put the gift in?" Mother blinked, flustered. "Must be a mistake. I thought I put the—" "No, it's okay," I said, closing the lid slowly. "Maybe it's symbolic." Laughter rippled around the table. I forced a chuckle, but something inside me twisted. After brunch, I slipped away upstairs. The guest room, my room, was colder than the rest of the house. It had always been. The decor hadn't changed since I was 16. Floral wallpaper, a twin bed, and a dresser with a mirror too high to be practical. On the pillow was a folded piece of paper, not from any of the family, handwritten, anonymous. "If you knew the truth, you'd never forgive them." My fingers froze. The handwriting wasn't familiar, but the paper smelled faintly of lavender and old wood. The kind of scent that came from drawers rarely opened. I tucked the note into my pocket, heart beating just a little faster. When I returned downstairs, everyone was in the living room, gathered around the tree for coffee. Amanda stood with a French press in one hand and that ever-perfect smile on her lips. "Coffee?" she asked sweetly, walking toward me. I nodded, still processing the note. As she reached me, she tripped, deliberately, and the steaming coffee splashed all over my white dress. The shock of heat was immediate, the silence in the room deafening. "Oh my God, I'm so clumsy," Amanda gasped, though there wasn't a hint of panic in her eyes. "That poor dress." The room erupted in laughter, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "Just a little sisterly prank," my uncle chuckled. "Come on, don't be so sensitive," our mother added. "You know how Amanda jokes." I stood there, soaked, heart thudding. Every eye in the room watched me for my reaction. I smiled tightly and excused myself. Back upstairs, I stripped off the ruined dress, wrapping myself in the old robe still hanging behind the bathroom door. My reflection stared back at me, tired, tense, but not broken. I retrieved the note from my pocket and read it again. My fingers gripped it tighter this time. They thought I'd never fit in. They were right, because I was never meant to. Not here, not with them. The next morning, I wandered into the attic. I told everyone I was looking for my old coat, but really I needed space. Or maybe I was chasing something my gut already suspected. The attic smelled of cedar, dust, and thyme. Sunlight trickled through a cracked window, slicing across boxes labelled with names I recognised, and one that chilled me, Isla. I paused. Isla. Why did that name scratch at something in the back of my mind? I pulled the box closer, fingers brushing across brittle tape and faded marker. Inside were old baby clothes, faded Polaroids, and at the bottom a crumpled document, a birth certificate, torn, water-damaged, but enough of it remained for me to read the name. Isabel Margaret Carter. Mother's name. Eleanor Graves. Not Eleanor Caldwell, my mother. I sat down, breath shallow, heart racing. I had never questioned my adoption. Not really. They said I was chosen, special, rescued, loved like their own. But the certificate said otherwise. It wasn't adoption. It was erasure. Suddenly the attic felt smaller, the air heavier. I folded the document and tucked it into my pocket. This wasn't proof yet, but it was a beginning. I spent the rest of the morning on edge. Amanda was unusually pleasant, offering pastries, even suggesting we take a walk through the snow. But there was a tightness to her cheer, like a performer holding a smile between takes. Then the doorbell rang. Amanda opened it and greeted a tall, sharply dressed man with a long hug. "You're late," she scolded playfully. He stepped inside, brushing snow from his coat, and his eyes landed on me. He paused. "Isla?" he said, blinking in confusion. Amanda laughed quickly. "Oh, that's Isabel. Doesn't she look like someone you know?" But he didn't laugh. His gaze lingered. My heart thudded. I nodded stiffly and excused myself, heading straight to the library. I needed answers. In the far corner of the house, past the wall of forgotten family photos, there was a tall bookshelf with a false panel behind it. I remembered it from childhood, Dad's secret stash of cigars and personal papers. He thought it was clever. We all did. It took me a few minutes, but I found it. And inside a leather-bound journal, thick and weathered, my father's handwriting. The first entries were mundane, stock notes, wine pairings, vacation plans. But then further in, I found a passage that made my blood run cold. "If Isabel ever discovers who she is, they'll turn on her. I've delayed telling her, hoping to protect her from what this family is capable of. But the truth has weight and it will surface. I only hope she's ready. The next few pages were ripped out. I sat on the library floor, journal clutched in my hands, the firelight flickering beside me. Who was trying to hide this, and why? I didn't hear her come in. "Looking for bedtime stories?" a voice behind me asked. I looked up. The housekeeper, Mrs. Warren. She stepped closer, her face unreadable. "I saw you take the certificate from the attic," she said. My breath caught. "You've known," I whispered. Her eyes softened. "Longer than you've been alive." I stood up slowly, journal still in hand. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because your mother, your real mother, was my sister, and I couldn't protect her. But maybe, just maybe, I can protect you." The room tilted slightly. "She's dead?" "She was exiled," she said bitterly. "Your father remarried, told everyone she left you, but I know better. I've watched them twist the story until even you believed it." I leaned against the desk, the journal pressed to my chest. "Why now?" "Because you're finally asking the right questions." I wanted to scream, to cry, to burn the whole damn house down. Instead, I whispered, "What do I do?" Mrs. Warren placed a flash drive in my hand. "Start here." It's all I could save before they shut everything down. Then she walked out, leaving me in a room that suddenly felt radioactive. That night I couldn't sleep. The walls around me whispered lies, layered over the years like wallpaper hiding rot. But now I had the truth. A horrible, burning truth. And I wasn't letting go. I didn't eat breakfast the next morning. My appetite had been replaced by a cold, humming focus. I'd sent the DNA swab a week before Christmas, more out of curiosity than conviction. But now, with everything unravelling, I checked the tracking link obsessively, and there it was, updated. I clicked, heart pounding. Positive match, paternity confirmed, Richard Carter, biological father, maternal DNA not matched to Eleanor Caldwell. Amanda Caldwell, no biological relation. I let the screen dim. For a few long minutes, I just sat there. A strange grief settled into my chest, not because I had lost something, but because I had gained something that was stolen from me long ago. I was the daughter, the only legitimate heir. And suddenly everything made terrifying sense. That afternoon, while pretending to organise the basement, I plugged Mrs. Warren's flash drive into my laptop. It contained a single folder labelled Insurance. Inside, a series of video files, audio clips, and scanned documents, pieces of a puzzle built over years. One video file stood out, grainy, time-stamped. It showed the study, dimly lit. My father sat in his armchair, weakened, oxygen tube in place. Amanda stood before him, arms crossed, agitated. "You can't do this," she said. His voice was frail but firm. "It's not yours, Amanda. None of it is." She reached for something off screen. When her hand came back into frame, she was holding a document. His will. He tried to pull it back, but she yanked it away. "You always loved her more," she spat, "even when you thought she wasn't yours." He tried to speak again, but began coughing violently. The screen cut to black. I couldn't move, couldn't blink. That document, the original will, never made it to probate. They'd said he died without a clear directive, but he hadn't. Amanda had stolen it, perhaps destroyed it, and no one questioned her. No one ever did. As I sat frozen, the last file in the folder called to me, a letter. My father's handwriting scanned and preserved. He must have written it near the end. My sweet Isabel, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And I failed to protect you. I let guilt blind me. I married Eleanor thinking I could rebuild what I broke. But I didn't know they'd take you from me too. Amanda. She was never your enemy until I made her one. You'll want justice, maybe even revenge, but I beg you, don't let the hate consume you the way it consumed your mother. Let truth be your weapon, not rage. I closed the letter with trembling hands. So this was it, the point of no return. That night, Amanda started her game. At dinner, she raised a glass and toasted the health of family, especially those struggling with mental clarity. She laughed when I didn't. What? Can't take a joke? Later, I found crushed sleeping pills in my teacup. I hadn't drunk from it, but I left it where she could see that I'd noticed. She was careful, always. Enough to gaslight, never enough to get caught. The next morning, she stormed into my room. Why are you snooping through Dad's things? She snapped. Are you looking for ghosts? I tilted my head. Are you afraid I'll find one? She scoffed, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. That evening, the chandelier above the piano flickered. The room was empty, silent, until music started. The piano, the one only I had ever played once upon a time. I stepped closer. The keys were moving. No, they had moved. A single note still vibrated in the air. Amanda appeared in the doorway, holding a glass of wine. Ghosts again? She smirked. I stared at her. Do you remember what piece I used to play here? She hesitated. Something... Chopin? No, I whispered. Debussy, Clair de Lune. She blinked. She didn't know, but someone did. Someone was reminding me who I used to be. Later that night, I stood on the rooftop balcony. The wind whipped my hair, my robe fluttering like a flag. The edge beckoned, and for a moment I leaned forward. Maybe it would be easier. Maybe that was the only way to end this. But then I saw Mrs. Warren below, standing silently by the back gate. She didn't wave. She didn't call out. She just looked up at me with steady eyes. If you die, they win. I stepped back. It wasn't just about proving I was the daughter. It wasn't even about taking back what was mine. It was about ending the grip they had on my soul. I didn't want their money. I didn't want their apologies. I wanted my freedom from the whispers, the stage laughter, the carefully sharpened smiles that cut deeper than any blade. I spent that morning in my father's old study, door locked, blinds drawn. I cracked the password on his old laptop, my birthday, the one he had memorized but never celebrated, after the divorce. There, buried inside a folder marked Client Transition, was a locked PDF. One final piece of the puzzle. It took me hours, but I found the password. A line from Debussy, the very song I had once played as a child. Inside was the original will, scanned, signed, time-stamped, with a note addressed to his attorney. To be released only if Isabel requests confirmation of heirship of her own volition. She must choose this path. I stared at the screen. My hands didn't shake, not this time. I printed the documents, copied the files, and encrypted them across multiple backups. There would be no erasing me again, but I wasn't careful enough. That night, I came back to my room to find Amanda sitting on my bed, holding one of the scanned copies. Her voice was calm. Too calm. You think a few papers will make them believe you? I didn't answer. She held the page up, then ripped it in half. You don't get to rewrite history, Isla. We already wrote it for you. It's Isabel. I said quietly. She smiled. You know, people go missing all the time, especially the mentally unstable ones. There it was. No more masks. No one would believe you, she added. You've always been fragile. I stepped closer. Then you'd better hope I stay alive, Amanda, because I'm the only one keeping your secrets. For the first time, she didn't have a response. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with the original hard drive. My copies, my notes. I stitched together a dossier that could destroy everything she had built. Emails, video footage, the forged power of attorney, the DNA results. By dawn, I had crafted what I called the truth package. Mrs. Warren helped me. She came to my room without knocking, holding a velvet pouch. Inside was a delicate silver hairpin, the kind worn by women in photographs from another era. It was your mother's, she said. I turned it over in my palm. The initials engraved on the back, E.G., confirmed it. Eleanor Graves. She left it behind when they forced her out. Your father kept it. He wanted you to have it one day. My throat tightened. Why are you helping me? Because I watched them erase your mother, she said. I won't let them erase you, too. We made the plan together, the Christmas gala, where the family always staged their performance of perfection. The press would be there, investors, old money, new faces. Amanda planned to announce a new board structure that would grant her permanent control of the family company. But not if I spoke first. I sent the dossier to every major stakeholder, time-stamped for the morning of the event. I didn't need to explain. The evidence would do it for me. And then I made one final call to my father's former legal partner, the man who had drafted the original will. I told him everything, sent him the documents. He confirmed the signatures, the authenticity, the chain of custody. I'll be there, he said. She won't be able to spin this. 2 days before the gala, Amanda cornered me in the hallway. She was shaking, barely containing herself. You're making a mistake, she said. You don't know who you're dealing with? I do, I said. For the first time, I really do. She stepped forward, grabbing my wrist. I was the one who stayed. I kept this family together. No, I whispered. You just kept them from the truth. Her grip loosened, and I walked away. The ballroom was dressed in gold and red, each table crowned with poinsettias and crystal candelabras. Strings of lights draped from the chandeliers like falling stars. Waiters glided through the crowd, balancing trays of champagne and caviar. Cameras flashed, laughter echoed. It was Amanda's kingdom, perfect, curated, untouchable, until I stepped in. The room didn't hush all at once. It was a ripple, slow and curious, like a breeze before the storm. Heads turned, whispers ignited. I felt every eye settle on me. I wore white, the same dress, the one Amanda had soaked in coffee the year before. It had been cleaned, repaired, and altered to fit me better, tighter in the waist, sharper at the neckline, stronger. Amanda stood near the podium, flanked by board members and guests. Her smile faltered when she saw me. It wasn't fear, yet, but it was close. I crossed the floor without rushing. Mrs. Warren shadowed me at a distance, a silent guardian in black. Isabel, Amanda said, her voice smooth, microphone already in hand. How wonderful of you to join us. Everyone, this is my sister. The pause was deliberate, just long enough to imply quotation marks. I'm sure you're all eager to hear about our next chapter. She continued, gesturing to a tall man in a tailored grey suit. Our newest investor and strategic partner. The man turned. My breath hitched just for a second. Eli, he hadn't aged much. Still the same ocean blue eyes, the scar above his left brow, the quiet confidence. We had dated nearly a decade ago, before Amanda drove him away with lies, manipulation, and whispered threats. His eyes met mine, and something flickered in them. Recognition, regret, something else. "Good evening," I said, stepping up beside Amanda. "Before you move forward with announcements, there's something the room deserves to see." Amanda laughed, forced. "Now isn't really the—" I raised my hand. From the back of the room, Mrs. Warren signalled the technician. The screens behind the podium flickered. Gasps erupted. A video began. My father appeared on screen, frail but composed in his study. "You can't do this," Amanda's voice crackled through the speakers. "It's not yours," he replied, hand reaching for the document. Amanda yanked the paper away. "You always loved her more, even when you thought she wasn't yours." The screen cut to black. Silence followed, the kind that roared. I turned to the crowd. "That was recorded 3 days before my father died. The document she took was his last will, leaving his estate and legacy to me, because I am his only biological child." Murmurs surged like a wave. I tapped the mic again. "For anyone doubting the evidence, here are the paternity results, time-stamped and certified." The screen flashed again. DNA charts, legal seals. "And, for good measure," I continued, "a little reminder of who Amanda really is when no one's watching." Audio played. Amanda's voice, slurred and venomous. "She doesn't belong here. She was never supposed to come back. I made sure of that." Gasps. Eyes widened. A board member turned toward Amanda with visible disgust. Amanda stood frozen. Her lips parted. Her hand trembled. Then she lunged. I saw it coming, rage overtaking calculation. She grabbed the mic stand, swinging it toward me like a weapon. But before it could land, security intervened. 2 guards pinned her arms. She screamed about lies, betrayal, injustice, but no one moved to defend her. "I'll ruin you," she shouted as they dragged her out. "You don't know what you've started." I followed her with my eyes, expression calm. "You already ruined yourself." Just before the doors closed behind her, another figure slipped away quietly. My stepmother. Her face pale, eyes hollow. She didn't say a word, just disappeared into the crowd. An officer approached me minutes later. "We have sufficient cause to proceed with the investigation. The forgery, the estate obstruction, your evidence was more than enough." I nodded. "Thank you." The rest was a blur. Apologies, stunned silence. A few board members offered their hands, unsure whether to congratulate or console. I found Eli near the exit. He hadn't moved. "You knew," I said. He nodded. "Not everything, but enough to come back. I needed to see if you were still you." "I'm not," I replied, "but I'm something better." He smiled gently. "You were always more than they saw." I walked back to the podium once more, just as the press cameras clicked on again. I didn't plan to speak, but something in me said I had to. "They said I'd never fit in," I began, and they were right. The room watched, breath held. I was never meant to blend into this world of lies, cover-ups, and curated smiles. I was meant to disrupt it, to survive it. And today I own it, not out of vengeance, but because truth deserves its place. I paused, letting the silence breathe. So thank you for reminding me I didn't belong, because it turns out I was never supposed to. And with that, I walked away, The mansion stood quiet, stripped of its arrogance. No music played from the grand piano, no laughter echoed in the hallways. The portraits on the walls, once curated to showcase perfection, now seemed to mock their own history. I stood in the front foyer one last time, watching dust motes float through a shaft of morning light. Everything they built had been a stage, and the play had ended. I signed the final papers at noon. The estate would no longer serve as a monument to legacy, wealth, or silence. I had arranged for it to be transferred to a non-profit organisation dedicated to survivors of familial abuse and psychological manipulation. Rooms that once held secrets would now hold stories of healing. Walls that had witnessed erasure would now echo with truth. "You don't want to keep it?" the lawyer asked gently. I shook my head. "No, this house doesn't deserve to be mine, but maybe it can become something better." He nodded, and the pen clicked. The story didn't stay contained. The footage from the gala, the audio, the documents, all of it went viral. The media spun it into headlines: the forgotten heiress, the silent daughter who took it all back, blood doesn't lie. But behind the sensationalism, something quieter happened. People began reaching out. Not for gossip, but for solidarity. Messages poured in from strangers, many of them survivors, thanking me for doing what they couldn't. Some had been silenced by their families, others by the shame of speaking aloud what had always been denied. I wasn't a hero. I wasn't brave in the way they imagined. I was just done. But sometimes being done was where rebirth began. An interview request came from a podcast on generational trauma. I agreed, reluctantly. And when it aired, the response was overwhelming. Listeners called in to share their own turning points. Those moments when the illusion shattered and they chose themselves over legacy, over loyalty, over fear. I realised something then. I wasn't alone, and maybe I never had been. Months passed. Amanda was indicted, multiple charges, fraud, obstruction, tampering with legal documents. She pled not guilty at first, but the evidence was too loud. Eventually, she took a plea deal. My stepmother disappeared overseas. The investigation into her role continued, but without her physical presence, it stalled. The last time anyone saw her, she was boarding a private flight to a country without extradition. Fitting. The board of directors restructured. I declined a seat. Power never interested me. Peace did. One evening, I returned to the beach where my father used to take me when I was little. Back then, he told me stories about how the waves could carry secrets to the shore if you listened carefully. I hadn't believed him, but now I stood barefoot on the sand, salt in the air, breeze tugging at my coat. In my hand, I held a weathered envelope, cream paper tied with twine. Inside was a letter. The ink faded, the handwriting gentle. My sweet Isla, they told me I had to leave you to protect you. They told me you would be better off, that I was unstable, dangerous. I believed them until I didn't. I have searched for years, but they moved you too well. I left this letter with someone I trusted, praying it would find you. I never stopped loving you. I never stopped being your mother. It was signed with the name I had only read in records, Eleanor Graves. I closed my eyes, chest aching in a way I hadn't let it ache in years. Mrs. Warren had given me the letter the night before. She'd held on to it, not knowing when or if it would be safe to share. But now, she said, was the time. There had been a return address barely legible. A coastal town in Oregon. A name E.G. Sinclair. I booked the flight that night. The next morning I arrived at a small seaside cottage framed by wildflowers and white fences. I stood on the porch, unsure if I would knock, unsure if I could. But the door opened before I had the chance. She looked like me, older, gentler, eyes brimming with tears. We didn't speak at first, we just stood there, staring, and then, like the ocean had finally delivered its message, she whispered, "My Isla." And I fell into her arms. We talked for hours. She filled in the gaps. My father had believed her dead. The stepmother had orchestrated everything, false records, bribed doctors, even staged letters. It had been a masterpiece of erasure, but it hadn't worked. Because here we were, alive, together. Later, as the sun dipped into the sea, I walked the shore alone, letting the tide touch my feet. The waves whispered again, but this time I didn't listen for secrets. I listened for peace. People often ask how I survived. They think I smiled through the pain because I didn't understand it, because I was naive. But the truth is, I smiled because I knew. I smiled because they never saw me coming. They thought my silence meant surrender. They thought my softness meant weakness. They thought my absence meant erasure. But I was never erased. I was simply waiting. And in the end, it was my silence that destroyed them. Because silence, when chosen, is not powerlessness. It's preparation. They thought I smiled because I didn't know. They never imagined the truth. That my smile was the beginning of their end.